Alright, so in our final clip here, we're going to go in and create some more particles to emit velocity from. And so that's just going to give everything a bit more of an interesting dynamic. So let's just create an emitter, and we'll have this on the nucleus 1. Let's call this directional emitter. And let's make this directional, and let's make it, give it 1,000 rate and speed of 350 and 100. So let's just snap that into place. And around the same area as before. And let's constrain that. And now these particles, we're going to have them inherit the velocity of 2. So we're going to make these shoot forward quite a bit. And the idea is we're going to make them a little bit smaller. And we're just going to have them shoot forward to try to push some interesting fluid forward as it passes by. And just give a little bit more of an interesting fluid movement. So like before, let's just give this a random range. Let's do about 0.15, 0.025, a little bit longer, almost double the lifespan of the explosion particles. And let's just simulate a little bit here. Okay, so let's make these spheres. And let's see, that's all we really need for this. So in the directional emitter, let's just go ahead. Let's see here, let's push it. Let's give it a spread of 0.5. Let's try that. So it's pushing forward. Maybe that's a little too much. Why don't we push it back a little bit? Okay. Now also let's just key off the emission. Let's just leave it on for 2 frames. And a frame 13. Let's key it off. So let's just rename these. Right, so now let's just go ahead and cache these out. And we're also going to delete the cache on our old particles here. And we're going to drop the inherit factor to 0.5. Because remember, I was shooting forward a little too much. Now let's go ahead and cache these out. Replace that. And we can cache these particles out as well. And there we go. So now we've just got more velocity going in different directions, more interesting things going on. Alright, so now let's just add these particles in. And we can call this velocity. And I'm going to turn off, let's turn on free flow. And let's turn off everything else except for velocity. So fuel, oxygen, temperature, and smoke. And let's just have the velocity in here, and it's going to multiply it by 0.5 every frame. So it's going to die off really fast. So there we go. Let's add that into our fume container. And now let's just make some final adjustments to our fluid itself. So I'm going to drop the spacing to 0.2. Let's set the end frame to 150. Even though we're emitting to 60 or 65, we just want to keep the simulation going until it dies out. So it's still kind of in the frame. Maybe it'll die out by 100 or so, but yeah, so maybe let's just simulate this till about 100. So let's just go through our settings here. Got the time scale. And so everything else looks like we'll keep it the same. Alright, so I'm just going to call this explosion, and now let's take a final sim. Alright, so we have our final simulation here, and it's looking great. When you mix it in with the initial explosion, it all blends in really nicely, and we get a lot of great detail in there. And the speed blasts out really fast and then slows down a little bit. You can see the extra detail in the velocity channels here, as it just pushes some of the fluid forward a bit, and then it just gives it a bit more of an interesting dynamic. So that's it for this module. And the next module, we're going to go in and start setting up some secondary emitters as the choppers crash, and we're going to set up some fire and smoke off the engines, and that'll take us all the way down until we hit the ground. So we'll see you in the next module.